The Acolyte is almost upon us, and if you really want to get the most out of the show in terms of entertainment, here's what you need to know.
Believe me!
To get the more obvious stuff out of the way, The Acolyte is a show that will be set 100 years before the events of The Phantom Menace, meaning that it will take place in the tail end of the era of the High Republic. The show is set to explore a series of Jedi murders and tell a story about how the Sith regain power within the shadows and unbeknownst to the Jedi. So to understand where the Jedi are at this point in time in the way they think and act, you need to understand what the High Republic actually means. Now, most of the promotional material really just tells you that the Jedi are at the height of their power, but if you delve into the books and comics, what the High Republic means for the Republic as a whole is expansion. It's a time where the Republic is expanding its influence throughout the galaxy, attracting new members and opening up newer unexplored parts of the galaxy. Now, of course, they do run into a few obstacles such as the Nihil and more specifically Marchion Ro, but for the most part, the momentum of this expansion is relatively undeterred, at least from what we can see. And so by extension, the Republic's expansion also signifies the expansion of the Jedi. We see the Jedi Order expand its influence simultaneously, setting up new Jedi outposts and temples throughout the galaxy, so very much in parallel with the growth of the Republic, and for the most part they're pretty successful at it, almost acting like lone rangers in the more remote parts of the galaxy. Now, while this might paint a rather rosy picture of the Republic and the Jedi during this era, and granted from a big picture perspective they were successful overall, however, the degree of success has actually been capped due to a series of antagonistic adversaries. As far as the story of the High Republic has progressed, the biggest obstacle has been Marchion Ro and the Nihil. Initially a roving band of raiders, this particular faction has become a pretty big threat due to a superior understanding of hyperspace lanes and technology. Essentially, the Nihil perceived the expansion of the Republic as a threat. After all, law and order are enemies of criminality. And so what we get is this deliberate orchestration of the Great Disaster, whereby the destruction of a transport ship mid-hyperspace travel causes fragments to exit hyperspace at seemingly random points, resulting in a series of destructive events throughout the galaxy. What's actually even more detrimental is that to handle this crisis, the Republic issues a hyperspace travel ban, which effectively slows down the momentum of its own expansion. It's also worth keeping in mind that the Republic doesn't have an active military and only has a host of security forces and what members of the Republic provide. And so there is a pretty heavy reliance on the Jedi during this period. Now fast forward a little, and although the hyperspace ban has been lifted, the struggle with the Nihil continues and a huge blow is delivered with the destruction of the Starlight Beacon. The Starlight Beacon was a prestige project commissioned by the Republic as a space station and center of operations for the Jedi in their outreach missions to the Outer Rim, symbolically a bastion of hope and practically a means of exerting Republic presence into remote regions as the Republic's expansion continues. And so the destruction of such a station by the Nihil once again slows down this great expansion of the Republic and of the Jedi. Concurrent with this event is actually Marchion Ro, leader of the Nihil's weaponization of a creature known as the Shriekers or Levelers, which have the ability to induce overwhelming fear and disorientation within Jedi, eventually leading to their death, basically sucking the life out of them. The weaponization and appearance of these creatures caused a lot of uncertainty and fear within the Jedi Order, leading them to make the decision to temporarily withdraw from certain areas. What follows is a much more cautious approach to the Jedi expansion strategy, again effectively a slowdown in the growth. The regions most affected by these events was the Outer Rim, and this was further exacerbated when the Nihil managed to establish an occlusion zone, an energy barrier that isolated parts of the galaxy. Capitalizing on their technological advantage, this storm wall effectively walled off parts of the Outer Rim from the Republic, ending any form of communication and travel between. And there are major ramifications for the Republic and Jedi as this effectively ends their Outer Rim expansion, at least temporarily. It also provides the opportunity for a lot of dark side orders and cults to appear as the Jedi no longer have the extensive presence to patrol these regions. the ramifications of which are actually hinted at in the Acolyte show with Mother Anastasia and her cult of witches. So it's very likely that the cult we see in the show is a product of these events. You can also bet that this occultation zone also provides the Sith with the opportunity to breathe once again without the fear of being hunted or detected by the Jedi. The occultation zone is where the High Republic story ends for now, and so the key point to take away here is that while the High Republic is an era of expansion for both the Republic and the Jedi, the numerous obstacles it faced over the years has eventually led to a slowdown of that expansion, and in some instances a complete reversion. What this means for the Acolyte is that the show will likely depict the final nail in the coffin for this period of expansion. Where previous events dramatically slowed the expansion, the Acolyte will likely depict an event that halts it completely. Which is why by the time of the Phantom Menace, slavery and other forms of criminality are rampant in the Outer Rim, devoid of any Jedi presence and an explanation for why the Jedi don't really seem to care. More broadly speaking, the show will also likely depict why the Republic is effectively in decline by the time of the prequels, how corruption and ineffective bureaucracy has infected the Republic, making it a shadow of its former self. So it will be interesting to see how the show explores these themes. And linking this earlier period of the High Republic to its final days are Master Yoda, potentially Plo Koon, and more importantly Vernestra Ro. Vernestra's perspective should be quite interesting as she effectively grew up and experienced the whole episode between the Republic and the Nihil, and so it will be interesting to see how she reflects on these past experiences as the story unfolds. Anyways, that's all for this video. Hopefully it gives you a nice rundown on the High Republic and sets the context better for you to enjoy the show. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. I am the Lost Acolyte,
and I have spoken.